Well, now let's turn to a build along with Bill Davis. This is the last segment that Bill will have on building the Sylvan model of the boxcar, 1929 boxcar from CN. So, Bill, thanks so much for doing this. I really do appreciate it. And also, don't forget, this is the Bill Davis that we're going to have on Modeling Lifestyle on the 18th of October. So don't forget that. You can see him and hear him live on October the 18th on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. Bill, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And it's been a fun project doing this this build along. And it's been interesting for me too, doing in two different scales. This is the last part of this project. We're going to do a little rehearsing here, or going back into what we've done before. So on this one, we're going to deal with lettering, weathering, final assembly, and HO and O scale of final observation, maybe a little more. So last time we had painted the box cars and we weathered the roof. So that's kind of where we were at. So this time out, we're going to start dealing with decaling. Now, when I do decaling, I have 6 steps that I do, and they seem to work well for me. The first thing I do is spray a gloss coat on the model. Next, I carefully cut out the decals and then apply the decals, just leaving as little film as possible. And then the trick is to get a good setting agent for the decals. I like Microsol, but Solvaset I think is still available. There's probably a few others I haven't thought about, but that are out there. And then what I do afterwards is I found that if I just spray a dull coat after just doing the setting Solvaset type of thing, that you can still see some of the edge of the film. So I found if I spray a gloss coat over the decals, that it hides all that. And so when I spray a flat finish, it looks like there's no decal at all. So it's just a little trick that has worked well for me. So here's the HO car all decaled. And here's the O scale car all decaled. And you can see that there's no evidence of film anywhere on the finished decals. The next thing I want to talk about is weathering. Weathering is just a really interesting subject. There are multiple materials for doing weathering. So there's a few here: oil paints, acrylic paints, chalks, pan pastels, watercolored pencils, makeup, and dried pigments are just a few things I mentioned here. And there are techniques for weathering. We dealt with the salt finish doing the roof, but also hairspray works really well. You lay a base coat down of whatever your subcolor is going to be, or your wood tones or whatever tones you're having. You spray it with hairspray, put your final coat on, and go back with a wet brush and remove the paint, and you come up with a nice clean paint effect. Another method is to dab the paint on, just to have a dry brush effect and dabbing the paint on. Another method that I've used that's worked out really well is to dry brush, and simply to brush the paint on there, but have the very little paint on your brush when you do it. And of course, the old trusty airbrush works well, and washes. Now, one thing I want to suggest to guys that it doesn't have to be model railroad when you're looking for techniques and for ideas. A lot of what I do, I learned from military modelers. And military modelers, in many ways, are way ahead of us when it comes to weathering. There's some really good sites. One I really like is Scale War Machines has one that is done a lot of techniques that I picked up from them. But there's just a lot of different ways you can do things we don't do, and they tend to do, and it comes out really nice. So here's the HO car weathered. It's not weathered heavily, just enough to look like it's been out in the road for a while and gotten dirty. All this weathering was done with chalks on the HO car. And you'll notice on the roof here that I went back and I chalked the roof with Bragdon's soot. I wanted the effect of in the 1940s picture we showed last time, the effect of soot from the steam locomotives, and I wanted that effect on the roof. So I added the soot effect to it. And the other frame, I added some rust and dirt, and things like that to get it kind of a used look, but not abused look. This is the O-scale car. I went a little bit farther than the O-scale car, but not much. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get along here with it. One of the things I did is I used makeup on this. I have a friend in California. His name is Don McKinney, award-winning modeler. He has used makeup to model models for as long as I've known him, and that's probably 30 years. And his models are fabulous. And if you go into a Walmart and go down the makeup aisle, you've got every color in the world. And in many, many ways, makeup is no different than pan pastels. And using them the same is basically the same thing, and they're a lot cheaper. So once again, I sorted the roof and the under frame. I weathered it to look like it's dirty. But also on this car here, I went for a metallic look. And I'll get a close-up picture here. In this close-up picture, you can see that like in here, along in here, along here, these parts along on the brake pieces, that metallic, that's all makeup. I was in a Dollar Tree and I happened to see this kit of about a half a dozen eyeshadow type makeups or whatever. And I bought it, and it worked out really nice for getting that metallic look on parts. So pretty much there's, like I said, there's many, many options, many, many ways to do this. I could have used oils. I've done that in the past. I could have used acrylics. On these cars, I just chose to use chalks and makeup. I did the same thing with the doors in these cars, too. I chalked these doors with the makeup as well to get some metallic look on the doors, so it's separated from the car sides. So a final observation. Here's the two cars together. One thing I learned in this is that the tools needed to do the different scales can be different. A lot of my tweezers and a lot of my pliers and things like this work out great for doing the O-scale car. Didn't work out that well for doing the HO car. But, you know, it depends on what you're after. You know, I have a theory about scales. You know, my personal choice of interest is industrial railways. But, you know, if you're going to model, and this is just my viewpoint, but if you're going to model, let's say, the Santa Fe or the Southern Pacific or the Union Pacific, doing it in a small scale like N scale, where you can run 75, 80 car trains, is much more logical than trying to do it in a large scale. And, you know, as you work your way up, a mid-size railroad, you can do really nicely in HO. A little small short line works out great in S. But, you know, in O scale, for what I like to model, little critters, little four-wheel critters and things like that, and dump cars and quarry equipment and logging cars, stuff like this, O scale is perfect. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do a major railroad in O scale, but it takes a lot of space. So it just depends what you really want to do, how much detail you want to do, what your goal is for your model. My goal is in my modeling to do as much as possible, get as much detail as possible, and so O scale works perfect for that for me. The HO car came out looking nice, but it's nowhere near as detailed as the O scale car in this picture. So it's a short subject tonight, but I hope you like the car. If you have any questions or comments, let's hear them.
I think the makeup tip is a really neat idea. I really do. I'd never heard anybody talk about that before, Bill.
Yeah, like I said, I remember seeing these beautiful models done by, and he's got trophies and awards all over the place, done by Don, you know. And when he told me, yeah, I just used makeup, I went, you're kidding me, you know. And he said, no. And so I started playing around with it. And like with that picture of the underframe there, I mean, you can see that the metallicness coming out of the metalwork on that car. And so
What kind of makeup do you use? Is it eyeshadow, you said?
this happened to be a cheap set of eyeshadow. It cost me $1 in Dollar Tree.
Various colors, you just
Yeah,
choose?
there's probably about 10 or 12 colors, and just little tiny squares, about, I don't know, ½ inch square of color. And I don't use it a lot, but it does the job. And like I said, if you go to a Walmart store, there are so many different colors. It's unbelievable.
Well, thank you so much. Like I say, I've never heard of that before, but I think you did a great build, and I really do appreciate it, Bill. Thank you.
I have one question, Jim.
Oh, okay.
Bill, have you ever had any issues when you were assembling that old scale car?
Not really. The issues I had with the car mostly was the underframe didn't fit inside. Let's go back here for a second here. Well, the underframe didn't fit perfectly. I had to grind off part of the end detail because it dropped in there. That was the biggest problem I had. Other than that, everything fit really well. I mean, they're nice kits. They are nice kits.
Yeah.
And you can really go to town and detail them. The other thing too is I tend to be a Proto 48 modeler. I like to use the correct gauge of the wheel sets. I like to have the smaller flanges. There are guys that do Proto 87, and they're doing the same kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know how they see it, but they do the same thing. I mean, it's amazing. There's a guy in England that's got a diorama of a Pennsylvania industrial scene, all done in Proto 87. I mean, and you can hardly tell it's a model.
Beautiful.
It's amazing.
Thanks, Bill.
Sure.
Thanks again, Bill. Really
All right.
appreciate it.
Okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
All right.